Okay, we're going to go to item number 5 for public hearing. But before I do, we open it up to the public. I think it's important for you to understand where some of the things council's been working on, so you get the bigger picture of how all of these things and pieces fit together. One of the challenges that we've had for the last 4 years is we've been running a deficit. And council, along with the new town management, made the decision that we're going to close the deficit once and for all. And we will approve next month a balanced budget, and which is a real compliment to the sacrifice of the town employees who rolled back their salaries to 5% this year, for this coming year. And the negotiations just took a matter of a few weeks instead of months, because they are absolutely committed to helping us move things forward in all aspects. And so I think it's important for you to know that the sacrifice that they've made. And also, there's been a lot of, because of the balancing of the budget, staff has gone through and cut everything they can so that we can get there, so that we don't go into another year with a deficit. And it's not based on Sacramento-type budgeting. There's no smoke and mirrors. It is actual revenue that we know we're receiving. And if there are other dollars that come, great. If there's a rebate or any refunds that come back, they're going in reserve. And we're not going to live like Sacramento on rosy projections that they fall short of. And we're actually doing it right. But it's important for you to understand that that's occurred. The other thing that council has asked staff to do is take a look at the town operations and make sure that there's no taxpayer subsidies taking place at the county. For example, if a contractor comes in or a developer and we're charging $2,000, but the actual cost is $3,500, the taxpayers are paying that difference today. And so what we're doing tonight is basically making sure that none of the fees are being subsidized by taxpayers, but that the person at the counter is actually paying the actual fees for their projects. The other thing we asked staff to do is kind of look at, and I got to hand it to them. For example, Orville just raised their fees across the board. What our staff did is really take a look at what is the actual cost. Instead of using the highest employee, they went through and looked at a formula of actually who touches the file and how much time do they take with that file. And that's how our fees were developed. So you're still going to see tonight in the presentation, we have the lowest fees in the county. But what it did is it zeroed out the subsidies, because we have to take pressure off of the general fund of the town. And it's not fair, nor is it right, to ask the taxpayers to subsidize the contractors, the developers, Dollar General that's coming in, or anyone else who's got a project. And I've talked to a number of people about their concerns. And the challenge is we're being asked to live on fees that are 4 years old, and expenses have basically outstripped those fees. And we've reduced staff by almost half. If you literally look at what the town has done, we're down 4 officers plus 2 sergeants. We've had to outsource to the state our fire department. We've reduced management. We have reduced staffing here in town hall. There's only 10 full-time employee equivalents in the general fund here in town hall. Most of the town staff in town hall is funded today by federal or state grants, because they're taking care of programs. And so there isn't a whole lot we can do, and so we have to take a look at what other pressures are on the general fund. And what we found is there's taxpayer subsidies taking place, and that's one of the reasons why we're here tonight, to talk about those and deal with those issues. And then the next step, and I haven't even had a chance to talk to council, is the next step in the process. We thought, because of the sacrifice of the employees and frankly the really getting into the plan to get a balanced budget of the department, we need to take the time this next year to look at how can we restructure things differently in the town? How can we do things differently? And so what I'm going to recommend is that we have a commission or a blue ribbon committee appointed with Warren, Dwight, Gina, members of council, and members of the citizens of our community to really look at where we've been, where we're at, can we do differently? Is there a way to be inventive, creative? What are other communities in the state doing? We don't have all the answers. We may find we're doing exactly what we can do. And those are things that'll come up later in another part. So there's, what you just need to understand is the big picture. This isn't just something we're doing because it just fits in an overall plan to get us adjusted in the areas we need to adjust. I would venture to say there's not a business owner in here whose fees or costs or expenses have not gone up in the last 4 years. And to ask the town to do something that you yourselves are not is very difficult. I can't operate on the same things I did 4 years ago because of the internal costs. And you know, I go to Paul for my oil changes, you know, and his costs have changed because of the issues. And so those are things that we're going to be talking about and dealing with. And I just want you to see the bigger picture as we open this, so you can understand why we're here tonight to have this conversation. So we're going to go ahead and open this public hearing on 5A to conduct a public hearing relating to the establishment of an updated and revised schedule of fees for the town services for the town of Paradise during the 2013-14 fiscal year. And after the close of the hearing, consider adopting resolution 13, whatever it's going to be.
27.
37?
27.
27. A resolution of the town council for the town of Paradise establishing a new master fees schedule for town services, and repealing fees scheduled previously adopted by resolution 9043 or 0943 and 48. So go ahead and open it up to the public.
Okay, first card is from Fred Aldred. Second card, Paul Lyons.
Council, my name is Paul Lyons. I own Express Lumen Oil. I just wanted to get some clarification as to what any new fees are going to be on the alarm systems and that. I've had the alarms set up for 3 years now and paid the alarm company, all these other things. But they're talking about new registration fees, which we haven't had before.
They exist now, most people just don't even know that.
It's probably already been paid, and we just had a one-time fee.
Okay, but I don't ever remember paying a fee on it.
But isn't there some changes?
Yeah, that's one of the problems that we're currently having is there's a lot of your businesses or residential homes that have alarm systems that do not know about this ordinance and they do not pay the fee. And because we don't have right now any teeth in the current ordinance to have the providers supply us with those customers, we don't know about them unless we respond to their homes because a neighbor or someone calls and tells us that there's an alarm going on. So this way we would have a better, more complete list of everyone that has an alarm. And again, even though there is a yearly registration fee, if there's no false alarms within the year, that's waived. So that is an incentive for people to be careful, to make sure that their employees or their family members understand the alarm system. And then we also have a free one false alarm per year.
So would you pay the registration fee and then if you don't use it for the year, or would you wait till the end of the year to see if they haven't called, if they don't have any calls, and they wouldn't have to pay a registration fee?
We would have that data, so we would say your registration fee for the year is waived because you had no false alarms. If you have real alarms, that's okay, that's what they're there for, so that's okay. But if you have false alarms, then you get one free one. If you have a second one, then, so you have your free one. So you would still have to pay your registration fee the following year because you had one incident. But if you have nothing, then it gets waived, and you would be notified, because if we're looking into new database that's more complete that we can manage versus somebody else managing it for us, and us not having a lot of that information available.
So let's just be clear, so if if the alarm goes off and then the officers waived off the call because it was false, there's no charge for that.
No, yes, there is. If there is.
If they've never arrived at the scene.
That's right, because we're still using dispatcher time and police time in responding to a call, so the fee is less. The fee is, I want to say it's maybe $20 for a call off. If the officer is already en route and the dispatcher's already had to enter the information and pulled an officer either away from a call or pull that officer to respond to that alarm. So if they are canceled en route, there is a fee. If they are, there's still a fee, but it's lower. And if they arrive and then they're canceled once they arrive, it's that higher fee.
So that's a change from where it is now, with you would get 2 free, say in a year or whatever time. There would be a charge of $20-some for the first time.
No, you get a free one.
Okay.
But after that, if it's called off, then it's $20.
Okay, but let me ask you, I'm looking at this thing here, it says, alarm system registration valid July 1 to June 30, $16. Is that correct? On page 302.
That's for residential.
We have residential and then we have business,
So alarm registration, $28, right?
Yes, for commercial.
commercial.
Okay, and there's no freebie on that? That freebie thing you're
No, they-
offering?
But that's
They
just the
both have free-
registration.
That's just a
Yeah,
registration.
but I'm saying, on the residential one, it says alarm system registration, next line, if no false alarm and registration year July 1, June, the year will be waived.
Yeah.
And it's 0 or 1792. So it's $16 and then it goes up to 1792. I don't know, it's a little confusing. I understand the question.
I guess that answers my question.
Okay, so to clarify what our intention is, if under our old scheme, you had the one-time registration fee. I registered my alarm system. I haven't had any false alarms, haven't had any call-outs in the last year. When I go to register with this new one, am I no charge, or am I having to pay that the first year because we started the game over again?
That's a good question, Gabriella.
Yeah, it doesn't say.
I actually didn't answer that question.
Okay, I know you were looking at your paperwork. What I'm saying is if you already have an existing alarm permit, and say Paul was registered, he hasn't had any false alarms in the last year, you haven't had any call-outs, does he have to pay the alarm permit fee again because we started a new game?
Everyone has only paid it one time. Are you talking about the current ordinance?
The
They
current
paid it
ordinance
maybe
where
5
you
years
paid
ago.
the alarm fee.
Yeah, they've only paid it maybe 5 years ago, so.
Right, you
yes,
paid it 5
everybody
years
has to
ago,
pay.
and when we set that up, when I was on the council, then we set that up, and it was a one-time thing. We wanted to get the information one time, and you're good to go. So as far as I'm concerned, Paul and I haven't changed anything in our business. Why do I have to pay the alarm registration fee again? Because you started the game over. Yes.
You don't have to approve that, but.
Okay, no, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying, it's for the people that are currently registered, is the intention of the people that are currently registered, because you're gonna get this question, and the staff's gonna get this question, I'm trying to clarify
You
it.
have to enter all the data into the new website.
I think it's common sense, if we've already paid it, and you haven't had, and you were gonna waive it for somebody that hasn't had a false alarm, then why shouldn't that be going forward the same way?
The waiver only applies to a residence. It doesn't apply
Well,
to
that-
commercial
Okay,
property. Such as you would be,
But see, but that's got to change.
well, that's what I'm saying, that's where.
okay.
That's what I know, that's how we
But that wasn't clear to me in the presentation, so I appreciate you clarifying that.
Okay. Anything to change? Okay, are there any other cards on the table like to speak on this issue?
I have a question.
You gotta turn in a card though.
Could Mr. Moore please move his microphone closer? I can't hear what he's saying.
Speak into the mic. When you talk,
Yeah.
speak into your mic.
There's a lot of
Is it dead?
You are.
Go ahead.
Okay,
Okay, we're gonna go ahead and close it for the audience, for the public. and
Did I
bring it up.
forfeit my card?
You did.
Okay.
Okay. So we'll go ahead.
Lucky for you.
Let's bring it back to council for discussion. Okay.
I certainly would want to, before I vote yes on this, I certainly want to add that waiving fee to the commercial alarm system. And I'd also, to Scott's question, I'd say, I mean, I hear Gabby saying, if we get a new system, we're gonna have to take all of the data from the old system and input it in. Well, okay, good, that's just part of the deal. So I guess that's a justification for charging everybody to re-register. That's not our fault. If you're registered, you're registered. I mean, that's on us, we just have to,
So you're saying waive fees for commercial as well and waive
Yes.
fees for those already registered?
Yes. And no false alarms, just like that, the standard she's gonna use.
And this is for only monitored systems, correct?
Yeah.
I'm assuming we all know that, right? This is only for monitored systems?
It's for all systems.
Any system, even if it's not monitored?
Because the problem is, if you have an audible alarm and it's not monitored and it starts going off and your neighbor says, hey, Boland's house, the alarm's going off, and we send an officer out there, we need to deal. Because that came up, 8
How
years
do
ago. when
we, how do we
first-
get this information out? I mean, people move into town and they open a business and they get an alarm system put in. How do they know they need to register? How does this even?
Well, if they open a business, we might take care of that with our next item.
I have 9 cards.
Yeah.
My first card is from Fred Hogan.
Mr. Mayor, can you remind us?
Sure I can. Okay, great. The 3
My name will
minutes.
be Zimmerman next time.
All right, just to remind everybody of the council's rules, 3 minutes, 50 minutes total for pro, and 50 minutes total for opponents. Go for it, Fred.
Thank you, sir. I came here with stats of facts and figures, and I knew what I was going to hear from Lauren, and all I can say to Lauren is, why? Do me a favor, you guys. We're pretty darn straight with you. Be straight with us. This is nothing more than a revenue source for the town of Paradise. The town of Paradise in the past made promises to people that this town, this council can't keep. You're broke. You're looking for revenue source. Practically every issue you brought up tonight is not protection of the people. It's a source of revenue for the town. So don't treat these business people like they're stupid, please. These people know what's going on. Just tell them the truth. And if they decide, or if you decide that you need a revenue source that desperately, that you need to fleece the business community, so be it. Thank you.
Next card is Kelly Torn.
Being a part of the board of directors for the Chamber of Commerce over the last several years, I've been very interested in this subject and have participated with the town in the subject a lot extensively. So I just wanted to give some background of what's happened so far and where the Chamber of Commerce is coming from. The subject has come up many times in our board meetings. Wouldn't it be great if we knew who and what is going on, just like you're saying? It comes up and like if we only had a registry where we could look at what's going on, we could survey people, it would be such a benefit to our town. We set up meetings with Chuck Rowe and sat down and talked about it. And during this time, it was when the economy was turning to the downside. The community was very sensitive to this subject. We talked about costs. We talked extensively how it must be a minimal cost because people were going to complain about the cost. And so we also talked about the database. And the Chamber of Commerce has a database called WebLink. And this database can handle a system like this if we partnered up together and could find a way to make it work together, because this WebLink database that we have in full force could handle something like this if we found a way to do it. We started a committee after we met with Chuck, and we met privately on this subject, and again, went into it even more, so we put a lot of hours into this subject. And what we came down to is the cost is very sensitive and how people are going to look at this. We were talking about a minimal fee of $20, $25. I wouldn't mind putting the money out there for my business, but when we're talking about an economy and how it's been, we really were sensitive to the cost of something like this. And how can we keep it down? How can we use this WebLink database? And then the final thing that we came down to is we would need to wait until the economy got a little bit better and we could look at it to where we knew that businesses would be receptive more than they've been in the past. But the most important thing that we came up with was education. How are we going to educate people to understand what this means so that we don't have a lot of people coming up against it? And what we talked about is maybe a plan for a year or longer where in the Ridge Business Journal that's published by the Chamber of Commerce, you have an article that says, hey, do you know that Paradise doesn't have a business registration program? What are we losing by not having it? And educating people about what that means. Putting articles in the Paradise Post. Going out and educating people about what this means and what we're losing because we're not doing it before we move forward, so that we have a system of people behind us so that when they're with other people, the correct information is getting out there. And then we come up with something solid instead of something that is taken and moved forward and then gets a lot of pushback and a lot of misinformation, which happens a lot. And so that's where we came down to. And it got tabled, but we're still interested and we still have resources and we still want to move forward with it. We just think there's more of an educational component.
My next card is Larry Duncan.
Larry Duncan, 1706 Billy Road. I find it very interesting that the term license has been skirted all around all the time. The Post called it a regulation fee. You people call it a registration. It's a license, it's a tax. We've been fighting it for 35 years. If this information is so important, why isn't it gathered some other way? I have 4 licenses. All a person has to do is get on the computer and you can find out who's got licenses in Paradise. You don't have to spend $54 a year of my hard-earned money to find out where I am. Look in the yellow paper. And I looked up the definition of registration, and it says the number of persons registered, enrollment, entry in a register, or a license. Formal permission from a government or other constituted authority to do something, as to carry on some business or profession, a certificate, tag, or a plate. Now, it was stated in the paper that you don't call this a license because a license is, you have to have an education to get a license. Did you get an education to license your car? I didn't. And it is a tax. And that's what this is. And I think that if you do raise this, that you should have to do what PID does, is have hearings and see how many people protest it. Just like on Prop 218. Because it is a tax.
Bill Hartley.
Hi, Bill Hartley, Joy Lynn's Candies, and I too would like to applaud you, Council, for all the hard work that you've been doing. I provide a unique perspective on the business registration in that, 1, I'm a father of a fireman, 2, I'm a retired police officer, 20 years in Paradise, and 3, now I'm a business owner for 14 years. My concern has always been, when I was with public safety, what type of businesses we have in our town and what are in those businesses. And these businesses, many of them, have been grandfathered under old county rules and are in residential neighborhoods. We have no concept or idea of the items that these businesses contain, the hazardous materials, any of these things that not only are danger to the responders, but to the people that live near these businesses. We need this information desperately. As you said, we have no idea, nor should the town have to go through the phone book to research where a business is or who owns a business. It's our responsibility as citizens of this community to partake in protecting the community and registering. It's a critical issue. So I support your efforts. I think it's a necessary process that we go through. And thank you very much.
Next part is Councilmember Dave Moore.
So, thank you, Mayor and Councilman, for listening to your citizens and merchants. Appreciate it. I like hearing what I've heard tonight, that you're receptive. But I'm Linda Horton Lyons. I'm a merchant for over 31 years. You know me from the Brunch House restaurant. Been a resident up here from 1978. A little background that changed my life. In the last several years, in 2004, my business was impacted by the city of Chico and my landlord. They allowed a church theater to come into my mall, and it resulted in taking 2/3 of our parking for hours at a time, which impacted all the different merchants there and my bottom line. The church burnt down and my business went directly back up. Because what happened is that the customer thinks that you're packed busy and they go to another restaurant. And then I heard that there would have been another church in it. And I went to the city with a petition, which I gave you petitions tonight, and you know that I wanted to speak at the public hearing. And they said, oh, there's no public hearing. I went, oh my God, it's a done deal. So my gross revenue went from 205,000 gross in 2004 down to 106,000 gross in 5 years, going up during the 20 months that that church was burnt down and the other one didn't come in. By that time, I had to make a hard decision because I was down to my last, I was waitressing, cooking, dishwashing, I was cutting down staff, I was doing everything I can do to survive. I was fighting the city, the church, the landlord. Couldn't do anything. And I broke my lease. And then sent a letter saying that it kept me from my livelihood, all quiet. Then it went, I was diagnosed with a tumor in 2011. 10 days after I got back from that, I got served for breaking my lease. So on top of that, I got stress on top of stress. Feel like I don't trust my government. My own livelihood was taken away. My husband took over my bills. We couldn't afford insurance on top of it. And so I had bills on top of bills. This is where I feel we start having the same story, town and I, and a lot of merchants and citizens. We all have these bills. Our car breaks down, whatever, our health kits, and we only have a certain amount of revenue that's coming in. We're all in business, doesn't matter if you're just living on Social Security, you gotta know what's coming in and what's going out. Okay, the revenue diminishes, still the bills are coming in, and how we solve the problems, we have to deal with reality. We don't have the ATM, our kids maybe think we do. We hope our town council doesn't think we're an ATM, don't want that. That's what it's feeling like, that they keep coming back to us to take care of all the problems. We have to figure out how to squeeze dollars out of our budgets. We can't charge, like my apple wall of pancakes. If I could charge $5, they would have gone down the street. Our checks and balances are customers. We don't have a monopoly. They don't have to come to our business. And our Social Security does not raise to keep up with the cost of living. That's our reality. It hasn't changed. So I'm a solution person, and what I heard tonight is that you're willing to listen to us, and if we can get everybody that is being impacted to bring up their brainstorming solutions that will work together, because we're like in a boat in a turbulent ocean, and we're going to need each other to make it through. And the economy hasn't bounced up in a miracle, so what we would like to have you do is table it, look at it with all of us together, and I don't know, is a seller permit another source of way to find out that this is a seller permit? Because I have seller permit.
Retail.
Isn't that,
Retail
That's a
license.
state license.
but isn't that a source of database?
They don't provide it.
And then the chamber also has some of our businesses, that once you put it in, why would we have an annual? It just seems like it's continually another reason, another tax fee, registration, that keeps coming back at us again and again. So all I'm saying is that please create a roundtable approach so all can be represented where informed decisions can be made. And thank you for your time.
Next card is Cliff Jacobson.
What is your pleasure? Comments?
First off, I want to thank everybody for being here. And this is a small town, it's not a big city, but we still have a responsibility as council to look after the welfare of each and every individual who lives in this town. I love Paradise as much as you guys do. And, but we do have a responsibility to our citizens and the safety of our public safety officers, firefighters, police officers, who are going to be responding to calls in these businesses. Also, I heard Ms. Lyons say that what goes in, what comes in goes out. Well, as business people, all of you know that you have to keep track of your inventory. So do we. We have to keep track of our inventory. What types of businesses are in our town? What do they have stored in those businesses that could be harmful? But also, it's helpful to other entrepreneurs who are wanting to relocate to this town and set up their businesses in this town. Now they will have a place to go to because your business is going to be listed on the town's website for anybody to see, if you want that. If you don't want that, then you'll notify us, we won't put you on it, but pretty free advertising at $4.50 a month. So, it's not the idea that we want to put a burden on you. I don't think $54 is going to hurt any business in this town. Not when it comes to the sacrifices that the employees of this town have already made. In fact, we're so under strength, we might not even be able to find a police officer or firefighter to go to your business because he's answering the noise calls. So we have to take a look at the overall picture, not just the small part of, well, it's me. Well, it's not. It's all of us. And $4.50 a month is a small price to pay for the peace of mind and the protection that you're going to receive. A firefighter walked into well, you take the garden center, for example. They store a lot of fertilizers and things of that nature that we all know from that are very volatile. They'll explode in different conditions. In fact, even a grain silo will explode if it gets too much heat built up in there. So we need to think about all the citizens of this town, not just a segment of it, because we're all paying taxes. I've heard taxes mentioned 1,000 times. Well, I pay taxes too, and everybody up here pays taxes. And I don't think that what we're talking about today, we have had a public forum. That's what this is all about. So I'm asking you all to rethink what you're talking about here tonight, and think for the good of this, everybody in this town. Thank you very much for being here, appreciate it.
I had some concerns that I brought to the staff on who, when the definition of business was one of the ones that concerned me. And I had a citizen that emailed me and says, well, does that mean every real estate agent needs to buy a permit? And I asked the manager, and she says, well, that's a good question. Well, I figured if she didn't know, we need to, the staff is going to need to come up with some answers. Does the Rotary Club need to get one? Because, they're engaged in commerce. They raise money by, sometimes, selling beer or wine or hamburgers at the Chocolate Fest and things like that. So, and it says nonprofit. So I'm concerned about that we need to spend a little time fine-tuning this to figure out who we need to exclude. Does the church need to pay for a business license? I'd say, does a real estate agent need to? And then what are the exclusions? I know that under state law, you can't change a business license. It's a business license, and again, we have people that are disputing, is this a license or a tax or a fee or a registration, and are we just parsing words to come up with it? I know it's to recover, it's cost recovery, and it's about having the data, which I don't dispute is important. But I think some of the things are, we're duplicating the effort in some places with alarm registration, with other fees that are already, there are other permits, there's other business licenses that we already require for businesses that have to be like, massage parlors, tattoo parlors, and there's some other things that are required to have a business license, so that they have to have a business license and a business registration. And it's not, I don't think we've spelled that out. And my suggestion to the council, once everybody's talking, is that we table this and bring this, the registration back after we've done some.
Scott brings some good questions, and I concur with your inability to answer those, but I have the same thought. And I'm in a tough position because I can see both sides of this argument. Usually I line one side or the other, but I see a value in it, but I also see if it's perceived as a tax or money generation, I don't want us to go forward with something that is perceived to be that, because that's not what it is. So I'm in concurrence. I'd like to see us go back to the drawing table and come up with some ideas, and maybe get with some business owners and have some ideas on how to make this work where I don't want it perceived as that. I want it perceived as what it is. I think it's a good thing to have. I want to see us behind it as a business community, instead of looking at government as it's been going the past few years.
Yeah, well, I read the definition like Scott did, and like I do router grid with signs in my garage. I know guys that do, what about the Tupperware salesman? What about people that sell on the internet, on eBay? According to this definition, every one of those people has to pay $54. And I'm on this council, and I perceive this as just a revenue scheme. I understand the thing about the registration, and I know what Bill Hartley made a good point, and Cliff made a good point. And when I was a safety officer at the Paradise Post, we had a lot of chemicals, and we had a business plan. And there are some licenses, and maybe we need to expand this section of our municipal code to include other businesses to require a license that may deal with chemicals, acetylene tanks, and what have you. I mean, maybe that's an avenue. I heard the chamber say that, there's been meetings going on, private meetings with the former town manager and chamber members Apparently no citizens were involved in that or business owners, I don't know, outside of the chamber. But like, I heard that suggestion at the chamber, and they represent a large number of the businesses in our community. This idea about cheap advertising and all that stuff, I'm sorry, I'm not buying that. You know, it just doesn't work for me. I think what's important here is that we need to have the data. But just like on the alarm system and that fee schedule that we're proposing, you know, how many people knew they even had to register an alarm? You know, I talked to somebody yesterday that was surprised to find out that there's even a dog license in it. So, you know, you pass this. I mean, we have people that don't understand that there are rules and regulations and permits and fees and things that are necessary, or that are at least are required, you know, so I don't know. I am not going to be a yes vote on this item. And I don't think we should table it. I think we should just send it back, give direction to staff to reconvene the meetings with the chamber and expand that to a roundtable forum with business owners and stuff like that. That's the suggestion.
You know, Lauren and I had a talk today about this particular item on the agenda. I have a problem in the sense that there's nothing in it for businesses. In the sense of, one of the things I've talked about, you know, with people in this audience, if we're going to do something, then part of that fee ought to help promote my business. And that, you know, collectively as a group, we can, you know, if we pull together $20,000, we can do a lot of advertising and promoting and helping each other grow, where, you know, none of us are interested in just government expanding or just funding more of a program. It's got to have a purpose. And we talked about it today and discussed it, and you know, it's something I've talked about on numerous occasions. And so I'm, you know, for me, this is not the type of business license or program or registration that I would like to see. I think there has to be some feedback and input from business, but in particular, there's got to be some value. And that value has to help all of us grow. I have no problem coming up with a system that says, okay, these are the businesses in town, because nobody knows, when we invite businesses to come here, we can't even tell them who's here. And I think we need to fix that problem. And one way to do that is come up with some kind of a program in the future, a license, a registration, whatever you want to call it, so that we can go ahead and promote each other's business and help each other move the community forward, and not just go ahead and have another regulatory program. And so I really don't care one way or the other whether we table it or we kill it. It's just, I don't want this going forward until there's more work. In particular, I think the roundtable idea and getting businesses sitting down to come up with something, you know, and that meets everybody's needs, I think is important to do. Saying just no, we don't need it, we're not going to do it, isn't the answer. That's our problem in this town. We've done it forever. It's always no sewer, no this, no that. Bottom line is, we've got to figure out how to help each other and our community grow. And it's not about no, it's about figuring out what can we do to be successful and not burdensome in this process. So I'd like to go ahead and I think I'd like to basically kill this item and start fresh with direction to staff to go ahead and meet with the chamber, meet with members of the community who want to participate, and start rebuilding from the ground up. But with the understanding, we got to get the data that we need for our community. I mean, I'd like to know if I've got a neighbor that's doing, you know, has a business in his house, that there's no explosives nearby, or, you know, or chemicals or other things there. Not that it's, you know, to have government step in, but the town needs to know what's in the various businesses.
You know, just before we make a motion, what you said gave me an idea, and, you know, we maintain a town webpage, and a while back we sold a bunch of stuff, and people put little videos of it. We maintain that. That's a cost we already absorb, we already do, we have staff members, although they're limited, that deal with that. So maybe, because I concur with what some people do, the information that we're looking for is really valuable, and it's for public safety and for the safety of all. So maybe we incentivize everybody before we have a fee. We just simply say, hey, if you're a business in our town, provide us with this list of information, and we'll put your name on our, we'll create a page on our website for businesses, and we'll get it for nothing. You know what I mean? We can get the data we need without a fee. You know, yeah, we're gonna have that little cost to maintain the website, but it's not so good.
I would agree with what you're saying, Tim. As long as our goal is to get to something.
And
To get to nothing doesn't make any sense. I mean, to say that there's no nothing valid in this is not right. There is some validity to what we're talking about here, but we just need more input, more time, and so.
I would like to come back and say too, after listening to my colleagues and listening to many of y'all out there, I was making little marks and pros and cons, and somebody said they supported, somebody said they didn't. But you know, it does need to go back, and you guys were asking us to take it back, and relooked at, and maybe look at different types of businesses, so, anyway, know that, but I still think it's a good thing, I think it's something we need to have, and I disagree, it's not about money, it's not about the money, it's about doing what's right for the town. If somebody, if a firefighter or police officer walked in and got injured, it would be the town's, it would come back on the town's responsibility, not the Chamber of Commerce. The council runs the town. We have to make sure that we take care of our citizens. Thank you very much.
Is there, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Okay, is there a motion
I
to?
make a motion that we direct the staff to reconvene their meetings and expand it to a roundtable, or, reconvene the paperwork on this item and bring it back to us. Is that?
So you're tabling the matter?
In business.
Yeah.
Give the chamber, give the business.
With chamber and around the business community roundtable.
With the goal of putting something together. that meets the needs.
Direct staff to meet with the Chamber of Commerce and Citizens to work further on business registration.
I'll second that, but I'd also like us to have some council members on that also. I don't want us not to be part of that discussion.
Thanks for volunteering, Greg.
That's good.
That'd be great. We can have.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no.
Hi, I was with a roll call.
No money involved, so we don't have to.
Okay, well,
Can we take a break for a little bit?
I think it's a good idea.
Before we go on to other.
Thank you,
And then we'll come
guys.
back and talk